memory serves me correctly, we cut out 6 pockets in each one of the large pots. It's easy to check. In other words, if I'm right or wrong, I know where they should be. If I went out there, you could find them. They were very, very large HBP piles, very, very heavy capacity that were driven down, and then concrete brackets were then poured between the pile back into the pile cap. Now, I was involved in one of the reuses. We had something with the Queensborough president. She wanted to turn it into an ice skating rink, which I thought was wonderful and all that. And I had a chance to to go back over on my notes. I really do firmly believe that those things are stabilized with steel piles.
Well, my recollection is that the original 16 mats, the 16 footings, were untreated timber piles. They were driven to the wrong depth, and there were steel piles added at those 16 locations. The second thing is the big towers, they were always on H piles, and the Circo-Rama Theater was on untreated timber piles, and a good friend of mine, Alfredo DeVito, got the contract to redo it. I didn't want to get involved because I was afraid of extending the statute of limitations. But anyway, they found all the piles were basically bad, but it was a big, round, circular concrete mat, and it really didn't need the piles. So it really wasn't going anywhere.
Up front here. Thanks.
I'd like to, first of all, thank you for your excellent presentation. I'd like to thank you for your excellent presentation. I'm John Krawchuk. I'm the Director of Historic Preservation for New York City Parks. We actually have the jurisdiction for this structure, and I've had the pleasure of working with it for the past 10 years. And I've seen it through 2 studies recently. We've actually worked with the firm of Thornton Tomasetti and spoke with Charlie about 3 years ago about the structure, so I learned a lot tonight, so I'd like to thank you. I was very curious about the temporary nature of the structure that you referred to earlier in your presentation for the New York State Pavilion, because I've actually read through a lot of the annual reports that Moses, or the progress reports that Moses created during the World's Fair. And at some point it shifts midway in construction, where they start stating that the New York State Pavilion is being recognized for its architectural and engineering merits. There's a desire to make it permanent, and that extra money will be added to make the structure permanent. And then at the opening of the fair, I've actually read the minutes of what was said at the World's Fair on opening day for the New York State Pavilion. And then they restated an additional $1 million went into the pavilion to make it permanent. And I'd just be curious to know if you have any clue as to what that is or was. And by the way, the structure is in good condition. So I'd like to thank you for your excellent design work and construction work and construction management, because it's holding up quite well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, John. I would guess that originally it was not supposed to be permanent, and the original design had untreated wood piles. There's no way that building would have stood up. Someone came along, Zetlin and my friends here, decided to add some, H piles, because there's no way that thing could have remained in place, especially considering the stratigraphy, the subsurface conditions there. The wood piles would have rotted out a long time ago. Okay. So I'm sure it can be repurposed.
I think one of the things, quickly, I don't want to take over, but the real key to this whole thing is that all this elliptical was put on a series of bearings. These bearings allow the ellipse to breathe through thermal change. If you confine that breathing, if you confine it, which is what happened when the model was put in Pratt Institute, they stuck it to the thing and it collapsed. The thing that you want to do, if you ever come over and you have like $1 million, jack up each one, let's get in there, let's put in new bearings, because if those bearings freeze, you're going to slowly unlock all the beautiful details that they did. So that's a key thing. I've always thought about that being number one. Forget the piles, keep the thing from buckling.
I think they were Lubrite.
They were Lubrite blades, Merriman Lubrite blades. But I think you and I spoke about this. Charles Kowicki was the state architect, And the state, kind of gave it to Mayor Lindsay, gave it to Wagner on his last day, and Lindsay inherited it and considered it a white elephant. But somewhere along the way, the state architect hired Lev Zetlin Associates, and we redid all the interior petitions, all the strip footings under all the stuff that was in there, but nobody did anything with the major foundations under the 16 or the 3 towers. So it was, but I mean, when we were involved in that, all those CMU wall units were all cracked, like stepladder cracks all over the place. That was all replaced. I don't know how it is now. Cracked again.
There was a roof.
Well, the map itself is not a structural thing. I mean, what happened there is that Zetlin came in and he put this corrugated steel down, filled it up with sand, and that became the foundation for the big map. That is not a structurally supported slab at all. And the amazing thing is, it's caved in a little bit, but it looks pretty good. That's 50 years later.
Texaco map?
Yeah, 50 years later. So, and we don't look too bad 50 years later either.
Okay, with that, is any more questions before we call it a night and have a drink, and you can ask them some questions up close and personal? Yeah, we have one more.
Tom, I just have one question.
Sure.
And thanks very much. I want to reiterate the presentation you guys have put together. But I'm hearing, other than the New York Pavilion and all the time and effort you put in, and the energy and the hours you guys put in, and now it's the end of 1965, and I'm here because I remember going to World's Fair during 64, 65 as a little young kid. But at the end of 65, we know it's finished. And then how do you feel about now the 11 or 12 other pavilions that you just finished designing and working on for the last few years, and okay, now we got to take them down? And I've heard your presentations over the years, Vince and Charlie and Ken, and now I'm going to hear about what happened when you got to take the building down.
I think Lev signed and sealed all the drawings, so I assume that when they tore him down, he was relieved. If Vince signed and sealed them, he was relieved. I didn't sign and seal anything, so I didn't have any feelings. They were temporary. They were a show, and they were just an absolute fun thing to do.
Well, the facilities are gone, but thank you for still being here. It was fun for me. Like I said, over the years I've been hearing these stories, so I was trying to do this just for myself. So I hope you all enjoyed it, and thank you all very much, and let's have a drink.